So yeah, there are a few things that we need to tackle today. So what I'll do is I'll break down what it is that we need to, like, the general things that we want to tackle, and then there are a couple of requests that I've also had, as I mentioned, pre stream, which I will tackle before we dive too deep. Um, so without further ado, I'll at least explain what the main objective of today is. I've got a fair amount of time on my hands, so hopefully we can get a fair bit done today. We'll see how we go. So this is the section that we did last stream. I'll play that now, and I'm going to explain what we're moving on to next. So we did up to this point here where we come through, we drop down, and then we're going to catch. And what this arm is doing here through this breakdown is it's going to be grabbing something specific. So what I'll do is I'll play the long version of the latest that I have of the long version. It's not the most complete version that we have. But if we go through here, you'll notice that this is going to look, they're going to slightly reset this to give us more context, but this canopy is going to be part of a restaurant, is the idea. And there's going to be a person sitting on this table, sitting at these stools, and they're going to be holding a menu. And then what's going to happen is Major here is going to swing through. She's going to steal the menu, and she's going to use that to cover her face. The reason being, as we slide through here, there's actually going to be more robots, like we saw earlier, that are trying to hunt her down because she's just assassinated someone, for full context. So yeah, there's going to be a robot. There's going to be a couple of robots here that are basically going to be questioning, like, more employees. So I've got to do a lot. There's some crowd I need to fill out here, of course. So that's a bit more context here. I'm going to have robots. They're going to be like pointing, or like they may have something to say, like, oh, we're trying to look for this person, is the idea. So she's going to be sliding past them, and she's deliberately trying to hide her face. So that's why she steals the menu, and she uses the menu as she slides through to cover her face from them, and then she drops it, and then she slides into the next part. So as you can see in this version, there are a few things here that are missing. Is I've been slightly restaging this, so that I've now got a dining table. I've also created a menu, and I've been playing around with different rigs. So this is something that I did plan ahead for this, but some things didn't quite go according to plan. So just to give you a bit of context here, I do have, in our scene, I've created a menu. So I'll show you the menu now. And of course, with everything, I never do anything just without any kind of like nod or reference, because it's a missed opportunity in my eyes. So here I have a menu, and on the menu, I don't know how much you're going to see this, but it's little references, right? So this is actually a reference to the Matrix. So it says Bliss is the name of the restaurant, and I'll have some branding for Bliss as we go past. And then just says dining and bar on the front of the menu. And there's a reason that this is a symbol of wheat, which we'll mention in a second. But in here, there's a specific scene in the Matrix where they're sitting down. For anyone who's a big fan of it, you'll probably remember this because it's quite iconic. But basically, there's all of the people in the Nebuchadnezzar are sitting down, they're having a meal, and they start talking about food, which is why I thought, oh, I can connect this to the Matrix somehow, because that is one of my inspirations for this piece. And also, the people that inspired the Matrix were inspired by Ghost in the Shell. So it all kind of comes full circle, and that's our main reference. So in this, I've kind of added a couple of things that they mentioned. So specifically, Mouse, one of the characters in the Matrix, says, did you ever try tasty wheat? So that's why it says tasty wheat. And then they're eating it basically looks like porridge, but it's supposed to be disgusting, is the idea. So then I've got a bowl of snot, which is something that someone says it tastes like runny eggs. And then there's a whole conversation about, in the Matrix, they didn't know what chicken tasted like, so that's why everything tastes like chicken. So then in the menu, I've just added like chicken a few places deliberately to make it feel like everything just tastes like chicken. And so all of these are little references. And then ignorance is bliss is like the motto of the restaurant, which is something that Cypher says when he's having a sit down meal with the agents. So that's the little reference in there to the Matrix that I've come up with. How much you'll actually see it, I don't know. I'm not going to deliberately stage it so that you can see it, but if it's doable to make it look like you can read what's inside it, if you were to zoom in, then that I definitely will try and add that. So, yep, that's the menu. And of course, we need a character, right? So there's a very specific moment in Akira, which this next section that we're about to animate is referencing. So it's quite early on in the film when they're doing the bike chase. And there's a moment where they're driving past here we go. They're driving past a restaurant. So it's a specific moment here, this part. So this is the kind of idea that's inspired. So you can see like the dining chairs, you've got the table in the middle, and then you've got the plants around the outside, and it's all kind of got this red kind of coloring to it. So this is kind of the main reference, and you can see there's a guy in a suit. So I was looking online to try and find a rig that had a guy in a suit. So originally I was struggling to find something, and then I ended up deciding to land on Apollo, who is basically a character that we're all quite familiar with at this point. A lot of people use him, which was rigged by Ramon, and he's obviously got a whole new set of characters now, but I don't own those, and I don't want to put loads of money into this, or at least I want to, if I am going to invest more money into this piece, I want to be very specific and smart about where I put the money. So one of the I didn't want to spend all my money on extra rigs, basically. So I was trying to find different sources online, and I did end up landing on Apollo because I already own him, and he does have a set of clothing that I could customize to make it look a little bit more like this. However, when I tried scaling him down, because the clothing is a wrap deformer, right? That's how the rig is set up. As soon as I started scaling down his like main global scale on the rig, the uniform started breaking. So I was like, okay, now I don't have a rig. So what I've been doing earlier today is trying to find a rig. I found a free one online. It's not perfect, but it is a guy from Japan, and he is wearing a suit. He's wearing formal wear. So that's what I literally just got up to now. So if I can quickly show you the rig here. Again, he's not perfect, but we don't need him to be. It's more just he needs to sit within the context of the piece. So this is the rig that I found, which doesn't look too bad. I mean, his face doesn't need to be perfect. It's going to be quite wide anyway, but he is wearing formal wear. So that's the main purpose. But I do, just to keep it efficient, I do need to bind. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I do need to bind him to a picker. So that's the next thing I need to do before we start animating today, because I need to make sure that he's in position, he's the right scale, and then I'm going to put the menu in his hands, and then we have all the blocking from Major, who I can then start to in between so that we make sure that she takes the menu. But before we do that, just to make it more efficient for me, I do need to bind the picker. So that's the next thing I need to do. Before we jump too far ahead of ourselves, I did actually get a question offline from Animation Addict, who I felt I could have answered this offline, but I actually did feel like it was relevant for anyone who is learning animation and trying to learn more about body mechanics. And they were asking me how to decipher overshoots from reference, because they were getting confused about when something is easing in versus how it overshoots. So they brought up this reference here, and I'm quickly just going to go over this because this is relevant to how we execute things on CYBERPHONK. So obviously when we're executing CYBERPHONK, I keep on using terms like anticipation, overshoot, ease in, ease out, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, some of you may not know exactly how to break that stuff down when you're looking at reference. So I was just going to go over this quickly. So, because they're also getting confused between this and the idea of inertia. So with our character here, they're already starting out in an anticipated pose, right? So they're coming through, and then they're pushing away. So we're already down and we're coming out this direction. So we could consider this our anticipation. Now we're beginning to ease out our spacing gradually, but then this foot is anticipating where we're going to push off from to go this direction. So you could argue that this is a slight anticipation pose, but the overall motion, the overall inertia of our character is still traveling. So if we were to call this an anticipation, we still need to consider the spacing of our roots going out to ease out, but we're slightly pushing the root a little bit slightly to the left so that it can go off to the right. So just in translation Z this is, because it's our forward and back. You can see this is his body facing forward. So we're slightly anticipating forward to then push the root back. Then as we're coming through, this would be our breakdown. So this is where we're traveling through the air, and this is our apex. And then as we land down, now we're beginning to ease out in our translation Y. So it's gradually getting more and more and more as we begin to drop down. Now, this is the pose that we would refer to as the overshoot, which is here, because the reason we call this the overshoot is because we came going up and now we're going down. So at this is the most extreme point where the root is furthest down in translation Y, but then it resolves back up. So this is why it goes down, it resolves and comes back up again. So this region here is the overshoot. And then eventually you would settle into what might be a key pose, or in this case we continue to go up. So now this is a little anticipation pose because the hands are preparing, and then we push up again. So during that inertia, we have to consider, okay, we had to break it down channel by channel. So if we have an overshoot in the translation Y and then it recovers back up, the way we actually get that arc is you can see that our translation Z going back, or in this case now his body's facing forwards, but basically to screen right, that's continuing. See how that continues and then slows down, and then it still comes back. So technically around here, we're also overshooting in translation Z, which is actually the same time that we're overshooting in translation Y. So their timing is actually the same in this case, but it may not always be the case. You may end up overshooting in the translation Z early, then overshooting in the translation Y, and then you come back out. So at this point here, this would be your extreme, the overshoot in translation Z. That's generally the philosophy, and that's how you create your arcs. The way you create an arc is where your timing on two different channels are different, where they're extremes here. You've just asked here, you said, why is that not an ease in? What's the difference between the two? So easing in is just the spacing, but where you're easing into could be a key pose or an overshoot. You can see here on the top it says ease out, ease in, etc. But on the bottom we have key pose, anticipation, breakdown, overshoot, key pose. So in this case, we're kind of talking about this region here, where we're easing in to an overshoot. So they're two separate things. The overshoot is the extreme, where we've built up so much energy that we go beyond our resting point, and then we resolve into the resting point. We ease in to the overshoot, ease out of the overshoot, and then you settle back into your resting point, which would be the key pose. That's the difference. So they're not one and the same thing. Easing in and out is just the spacing as you transition to one of your main established poses, which could be an overshoot, or it could be an anticipation, it could be a key pose. The only exception to that rule is the breakdown, because the breakdown is part of the spacing where we're traveling the most. So you never ease in to, well, you rarely ease into a breakdown. You usually ease out of your anticipation or key pose or overshoot, and then your breakdown is the fastest point, and then you ease in to the other side. Hopefully that makes a bit more. So I'm just going to quickly open up a picker. So this is the picker that I use. This is my template picker for everything. But I am just going to start binding this stuff to our character, and then I'll take away stuff as and when I need. So now I can actually start moving him around. And you can see that he is tiny. So we do have a global scale here, so I can bring him up. I actually don't know what relationship. Yeah, that's already too big. So just to give us a point of reference, I need to find a point where she's generally standing. Even something like here just gives me a rough height. So I can move him into a rough scale. Maybe he's a little taller than she is. Something like that, 2.8 maybe. So let's just key this. And we're going to put him into a rough position now. So he needs to be over here. This is also going to tell me the size of the actual seat as well, because I haven't planned their scales. So I'm just going to put him under there. Let's move his root into position. And then we can see, does he look too big or too small? Let's have him leaning over a little bit. So yeah, all this stuff. Oh, you do have neck space. Perfect. So I can turn that off. Okay, this rig actually is probably a bit more modern than I thought it was. We also have body space turned off, which is perfect. That's going to help us a little bit too. The arm deformations look a little bit weird. Like the proportions. Why is his arm so short? But it does have the ability to stretch. Might just have to make those a bit longer in general. Like he has really thin arms. The skinning's not perfect. But we're going to have him looking down at his menu. The knees also feel quite long, which is why I got these knee controls, so we can maybe just touch those in. I'm not going to try mirroring the pose because I worry that it's going to crash or break Maya. How long did we stretch the arm for? 1.3. We'll do the same on the other side. That was that was 133. So something like this is enough just to get us started. He has really small feet. The thing is, his lower half is actually going to be covered anyway. And then we do have his bent arms here, which I feel like may need to be pushed out a little. I think that works. So now that's keyed. Let me just save that. Is it possible to show a simple spacing test I did a few months ago to understand overshoots better? Yeah, we can have a brief look. But so we have on the top, you just have ease in and out, right? So this is a simple. You can delete this after because you just have an ease out and an ease in. And then on the bottom, you have ease out, overshoot, and settle. So you do have the structure here. So this is ease out and overshoot. Then this one looks like a hard ease out. Yeah, that's just ease out. Let me just swap these around because you have ease out and then you have ease in. And then on the bottom, you have an anticipation, overshoot, settle. So this is the most typical one. You have ease out, anticipation, ease out, overshoot, and then your settle. And in between here, you have an ease in as well. And then this one is a big anticipation, and then a hard ease out. So this is just an anticipation, and then an ease out. So like your structures, like these are all different spacings that actually do make sense. Like each of these have different fundamentals and different types of spacing. So let me just see what your question was regarding this link. Is it possible for me to understand overshoots better? Yeah, so I think you, based on your spacing, what you've executed here, this is correct. So you can see here we have the main one that you'll be looking at is this one here. This is your main structure. So you have your anticipation here. This is your currently, this is an ease out. So you have your key pose, ease out, you ease in, then your anticipation, right? Then you're easing out again. Your breakdown is here. This is your ease in, your overshoot, your ease out. Around here will be a mini breakdown because it's the fastest point between two extremes, and then you'll ease in, and then your final key pose. Does that make sense? So that's basically what we described earlier. That's literally this. So you have your key pose, you ease out. There'll be a little breakdown in there somewhere, but you have very limited frames. Then I've just flagged your ease in. You have the anticipation, ease out, you go into the breakdown. Then you have your ease in to the overshoot, you ease out of the overshoot. There's a very small breakdown, and you ease in to your key pose. Hopefully that makes sense. All your ins and outs are just defining spacing. Whether you're going, where you're speeding up or slowing down. Your overshoot is an extreme, so it's when it reaches the most extreme point before it returns. The idea is that I can constrain it on and off between multiple things, and I can move within the constraint. That's the idea. Now, I'm probably going to not constrain it to him. I'll probably do him by eye, but then I will constrain to her because she's going to have a lot more rotation involved. So I do need to scale our setup control to get it roughly in position. Ah, yeah, it's going to offset. That's fine. This is a very, like, there's riggers out there that are probably screaming right now. But that I also kind of don't care. I just need something to get me by because it's all going to be exported geometry anyway. Getting closer. Maybe a little bit smaller. Was that too small? I don't know. That feels about right. So now I can move this into position. I can fold. Like that. You wanted to ask about blocking plus workflow. When I see your and some other animators going to blocking plus, there are so many poses it looks like it's already finished on a low frame rate animation. I want to know, how do you figure out how many poses, like 30 poses per 60 frames? In other words, that's on twos. As a question, I personally can figure out only extreme poses, but when it comes to in-betweens, I severely struggle to come up with stuff. I managed to figure out most of the 4 poses per 60 frames, not like 30. Yeah, so a lot of it is down to workflow structure. So as we mentioned here, It's a very good question. So we have like our main blocking, right? This is our main structure on the bottom. So we're establishing our key poses, our anticipations, breakdowns, and overshoots. And again, just to be super clear, not every action is going to have two of these things. Some actions may not have an anticipation. Some actions may not have overshoots. It both depends on your intention and how much weight you want to convey. Because if you want to build up a sense of impact, you may want to anticipate first rather than just going straight into it. Or maybe there's a comedic element, so you don't want to anticipate because it kills the punchline. So quite literally in this case, so you would just deliberately come out, and that kind of makes it funnier. So again, it really does depend on your intention there. But the ease in and out, the upper half of this column is basically your in-betweens. So when I'm adding breakdowns, the only reason in this case I am going every 2 frames or every I'm doing a variable frame rate here. Sometimes I'm going on 1, sometimes I'm going on 2s, occasionally on 3s. A lot of it is because the style requires me to add a pose each frame because it's in steps, right? Because we're working on stepped keys. That's the final results, kind of like Spider-Verse or K-pop Demon Hunters, that kind of stuff. However, if you're working in spline, I may not add a key every 2 frames. As I'm starting to add my in-betweens, depending on how tight the spacing is and how much information is in the in-betweens, I may say, okay, if I have a frame, if my anticipation here is on frame 2, and then I have a breakdown on frame 6, hypothetically, I can define maybe on frame 4, I'm going to define an ease out. And I only need that one key to define how I get from the anticipation to the breakdown. If during that I want to break up things more, then I require more keys. So generally speaking, even when I'm in spline, it really does depend on, I'm trying to define at any given time what is leading the action, what's following behind. And do I need to, maybe once I've done that pass, can I track all my arcs using that spline? Just by hitting spline with that one in between. If I can't, and I need more information, I add more keys. Occasionally, just to tidy up my workflow, even in spline, what I'll do is once I've defined the broader strokes of my in-between, so say I have like, I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. It's easier to do it with some animation. But let's see how I can do this. Because we have Major here, so I can work with her. So let's go to our main camera. Where is... Oh, why is she... No, that's Major. Why is she called Menu? She's called Major. That's a bug. Right. So we have Major here, right? And she's coming through. She's going to drop down. And we have these poses here, right? So she comes through. She swings through, grabs. And then we have this key here. So if we're starting from this through to this. Right now, I have my key pose. I have a breakdown. And then I have another key pose here, right? So if this is my breakdown, I've defined... I would say actually this is my breakdown pose here. And then this is my key. And then this is the other key. So I've deliberately said... Let me just turn down my sound for a second. So as we're coming through here, I've said that I've got on frame 49 is my key pose. Then I have a breakdown on frame 57. Anywhere between that time, I can say where I want my ease out to be. So this is my ease out, and you can actually see this is on 54, which is much closer to the breakdown pose. In other words, I'm going to spend more time easing out into this pose. So from here to here is going to take more time than from here to here. So again, you don't have to go halfway between. That's what a lot of people will teach you. Just go halfway between to find your spacing, but you don't have to. It depends how tight you want your spacing to be. But from here to here, you can see that I've defined lead and follow. So I can see that I have her left leg is coming down to lead the action, and I'm dragging behind her left arm. Meanwhile, we're starting to ease out the right leg. And then you see, as we now create this next in between, I'm now starting to lead through with the right arm, and we're still dragging the left arm. So again, during those in betweens, I'm defining different spacing, overlap, and follow through. So this is all to do with different principles. And then, now that I've got that working, there are two different workflows you could do depending on the style. So since we're doing very stylized mechanics here, I typically will just add more keys. So I'll go through and I'll start to break it in halves. So I'll say, okay, if I want to keep it on 2s, this is currently on odd numbers, right? We have a 3 here, 1, 2, 3. So I'd probably put that on 2s by either changing the timing of it slightly, or I would have it so that it goes from a 2 to a 1, just so that we preserve the timing we currently have. But I'm not locked to my timing here, so I don't mind tweaking things. Depends on where the beats hit in my song, because my timing is integral to the song in this piece. But you're gonna see, because we're gonna add some in between to this stuff later. But I just need to make sure we flash out the menu guy first. So as we're coming through here, if I was doing a more spliny workflow, I would basically hit spline on all of this and then bake it down on 2s. And that way I can then go through each channel and clean it up. And that way I get a nice fluid motion. But it's all based on the structure that I've built here first. So you still end up with a lot of keys, but the main reason I bake it down in 2s is it allows me to have full control over every arc, every piece of spacing. I can go in the graph editor and I can track my spacing of my roots down every 2 frames. It just gives me more control. Basically, is the workflow. You don't have to do it that way. Some people prefer to like tweak the tangents in their splines. People just insert keys and shift them around where necessary. But for me, to track my spacing, I actually prefer to just keep it on 2s. And that way I know that for every key, there's always 1 frame in between. Hopefully that makes a bit more sense. So you don't need a ton of keys, is the answer. For this specific style, because it is going to stay in steps, I do insert a lot of keys. But it's all using Tween Machine, so it preserves the structure. As long as I know whether I'm easing in or out of any given pose that I've created, the spacing will always work as well. So we're coming through, she's dropping down. Now, this is a question of, I kind of want to keep her behind the canopy because I don't really want it to cross over too much. So if this is our main camera, she is quite far back though. I wonder if I can move her forward, because then I'm guessing she slides. Yeah, she slides into depth here. So what I could do, I could shift him back potentially. So she grabs around here. So let me just see if I were to grab the menu and him. Let's just move those over. Maybe somewhere around here. Let's just delete these keys. Do the same on the menu. Delete those keys. So I'm building it up based off of this frame. Now the thing that's also tricky here, right, is that she is looking too low. Like she looks, yeah, she's too low. Like their silhouettes are going to cross over. And I want the idea is that she's going to snatch it from him. Which isn't ideal right now as it comes through. So I may need to raise all of this. I need to raise her and the canopy, which I thought might happen. So it's I kind of expected it to an extent, but I can quickly tweak that because this is all in IK. See, I can just move that up like this. Let me just find the right key. It's this one. So there's no keys on the canopy, so that will just stay there now. So I just need to tweak some of this spacing. That works. And then in here, I just need to do the same thing. Just raise it up. And then she can drop down into this, and that's fine. Maybe I can just ever so slightly tweak that spacing. So now at least she's a little higher, so that as she comes through and she grabs it, it's not going to look as jarring. The idea is she's going to snatch it. So this is also the timing of our camera right now feels a little... Maybe I need to delay it. Yeah, I think it needs to delay. Which actually works in my favor. Because I felt like we were suspending the air a bit too long. So I'm just gonna... We're hanging in here, right? So I can just make this a little longer. So you can add an extra in between here. So now we hear that accent, that's where we're snatching. So there's an extra 2 there where I can create the breakdown. I had to come through and grab. There is part of me, I just need to look at my frame. Is it now too high? She's kind of near the edge of frame. So my concern is, do I go higher with the camera? And then it drops down here? I think I might need to, which means I can also bring her higher again. Just because I feel like I want to see a very clear silhouette of her arm grabbing it, and I feel like there's just not enough room. So I think I need to make some tweaks again. So let me just grab this stuff again. It's all gonna be worth it in the end. Then here, same thing. So you can see now she's actually coming out of frame. I think that's okay. There's something with that arm that's going through the wall. Yeah, going through the wall. So now I just need to tilt the camera up. Maybe just save this. So let me take the camera, and it's our rotation X. We're just going down to low here. So let me just scale this back. Is that too much? Somewhere around this. She comes through, she grabs the menu. There's also... Do we need to make it travel, because there's a lot of space on screen. Like, there's a lot of negative space on screen right here, which I think actually we could benefit from seeing more on screen left, because that will reveal the robots earlier, which is who we need to be focusing on. So it's a question of, I don't want to rotate it, right? The more I rotate it, the more we expose perspective, and that makes it feel more 3D. And I know it looks 3D, but the point is we want to limit how 3D it looks. So because I want it to feel more like an anime from the 90s, right? But they don't have these crazy dynamic cameras. So even though we are moving, I understand that we are moving a lot through 3D space. I've deliberately tried to keep it so that the camera is generally pointing in one direction, so that it doesn't feel crazy dimensional. We try and keep it flat through each beat. As we transition through each beat, that's okay. But here I want to keep it a bit more flat. So I'm actually going to have a look at her translation X on the camera. No, that's depth, so it's our Z. Our Z in here is going quite linearly. So we're coming through. I did like earlier that we're coming through here. I reckon through this part onwards, this could be a little bit more constant. So now we're coming through. She's a little bit more centered. It's better. Let me try. I think that's better. So we're coming through. She's going to grab, and we're going to see the robots on screen left. Now, again, it's just we don't want to lose her, is the only concern now. So I may need to just take the edge off our rotation Y as well. So if I just make this ever so slightly more to the right, something like this. So now we come through, we grab here, which is nice. We're just on that right third. We're going to see the robot. She's still going to travel, come through, wipe around, and slide past. I think that's going to work. So yeah, let me save that. Obviously ignore the screen space stuff right now, because the screen space matching is now going to be incorrect. So where she is on the frame may not be exactly where she is. See how there to there it changes? That's because the screen space match is off. So we don't need to worry about that, because we're going to fix that later. Because it's off here anyway, so you know what we're doing. From here, this is the part that this is the only part we need to be concerned about. From here. So we're coming through, we grab, we're now catching through. What are my top 3 tips for stylized animation? That's a good question. Contrast would be the biggest one. So you want to have a lot of change in your poses. So you're going from like something very squashed, something very stretched. And by that, I don't necessarily mean it has to be stretching the volume, but just the pose, going from something tall and thin to something low and wide. Or like a line of action change. So you're going from something like this shape in your spine, something like this shape in your spine, where it's the reverse. And contrast is really it kind of covers most things. So like you want to have contrast in your lead and follow more than you might do before. So you're exaggerating things. So you exaggerate like the head really leads in action, or your foot really leads in action. And then you have contrast in your spacing. So that could be something that's like very punchy and tight so you favor your poses more. Contrast in your timing. So you get very slow moments into very fast moments. So So I think contrast generally covers most of it. Um, yeah, so if you watch, uh, yeah, I would check out the Agora course if you have the bandwidth in your budget, which to be fair, I think is relatively affordable. Um, and basically, I take you through the entire process from like concept to all the way to the end. And there's two courses. The first one is just theory about what like are the fundamental things when you do stylized animation, um, and things like how you adapt that from something more organic and natural. And then the second part of the course is basically creating this shot based on the theory that I described in the first. So we're coming through, we're snatching. Now, as we snatch it, it's a question of, do I want to keep the arm straight like this so it comes around, and then get a bit more twist to her chest, and then she comes through and grabs it. This is still on twos, which is quite quick. So it's a case of, do I want to keep that arm out for longer just so that we read the menu? And then just get a little bit more bend on the arm there. Because that goes on to a 3 here. So I can put this on the 2. Do I put that on the 2 and then hold in here? Or do I add an extra in between? I think I can add the in between. So I'm going to shift this by a frame and add another in between here. I am going to attach the menu to her in a moment. I'm just getting her mechanics working. So also, now that she is closer, I can always lead with this leg a bit more. For some reason, it looks like it's scaled. Yeah, there's some translation on her foot. There you go. Her hips looking pretty broken. Grab. I'm going to put this on the 1 as well so that we can contact the hand, the arm onto the pole. Like that. And we can also contact her other foot, which is nice. Because I want to get those silhouettes to read a bit clearer. Is that FK? Ugh, it's FK. I don't want FK. Is it still an FK here? No, it's not. It's IK. Okay, good. That makes sense. Okay, FK, IK, okay. Just hearing myself. So here we're switching up there. So that foot comes around. Now I am actually going to cheat the knee. Do I have that foot come in earlier? I don't know. No, I quite like the drag. I still quite like it. Coming around, tucking in. Maybe I need an extra in between here, so this is also on 1s. So we're coming through. That foot definitely contacts. Hand comes back. Hello, arm. Please come back. Thank you. We're coming through. We're contacting foot. Easing out. I'm just gonna. I think my screen space is probably breaking things, so I need to actually turn off my screen space match through some of this. Otherwise, I'm maybe getting a misinformed idea of how she's moving through space. Because it's still on here, you see. So I need to turn that off. Through this here. I know I've turned it on, but I'm actually, for now, I'm just going to turn it off here. So that it remains off for this period of time. There you go. Now I actually can see her spacing a bit clearer. Here it needs to be dropping. Here I'm going to continue to have it drop more. And then her arm. This is going to be the contact pose. So at this point here, she's still going to have her fingers stretching out. And then I think we need to rotate her slightly further in. Like that. And then actually I'm going to twist her foot a little bit more around to tuck the knee in. A little bit more silhouette space between them. That hand needs to reach out earlier. Like that. And then here, I want to get a reaching out pose for her hand. On the other side, so it's this one. There we go. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So we're coming through, and now we're grabbing. Now, is that spacing there? Because we have this lead on the leg, maybe here we need a transition. Like that, just so we get a bit more of an in-between of it coming through to ease in to the contact. Then we're coming around. This is the in-between that we need to fix. So here I want to feel more weight. So she drops down. Also her spine. Then her knee. So I'm going to have to cheat the spacing through here on the knee just to track the arc through that part there. Similarly, I'm actually going to keep this leg tucked in just to simplify the shape through that transition, because we shouldn't really notice the knee flashing on screen. Looks like that foot also doing something strange. Is that because we're halfway through? Oh, I don't know. That's strange. It needs to wrap around. Like that. Just put the knee back into place again. It's only over a frame, so I don't mind if it's a little cheated. And then we want to continue to drag the arm. To connect what the arms are doing too, I could always slightly reconnect the chest. Continue to lead with the head. Do I... Yeah, I continue to have her look at the menu. Do I get a bit more weight in there? Drop down. This needs to overshoot more. Then we're coming through into this. Because this is such a quick action, I am going to put this on ones just through here. So this is the grab frame, which is just before the sound by 1 frame. I think that works. So in here, I do want to get a clear read. Of the hand anticipating the grab. Just get that thumb out of the way. Then we grab here. So this is the grab pose. Continue to have her look at the menu. And then she's coming around. And tightening her spacing to ease in. I think that works. I just need to track my spacing through here because I think this one's now going to be slightly different. Yeah, it's more round. Makes sense. So it's more... There we go. Just tracking that arc and the spacing as it comes around a little bit more. So now it's a question of grabbing of the menu. I'm obviously going to animate the guy later, his reaction. I just want to make sure I get her action with the menu working first. So this is on a 3 right now. Through here. Coming through. There. So do I go on a 2? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so let's just delay this by a frame. And I can keep it on 2s as we ease in. Keeping it quite tight by keeping all of it really favoring the poses. And then I can break up after. So you see how I'm getting that push off on the foot? Then it comes in. This one has a little bit more progressive spacing. And then this foot here was tucking in on the in-between. Now her arm is also over twisting here for some reason. Yeah, there we go. Shoulders are always a big issue with this rig, but it's fine. We make do. So here, is that now in FK? Yes. Knee looks like it's tucking into much there. Let me just go into perspective. I want to shift that knee over more so that we have more room for that arm to come around. Keep it straight because she's letting go here of the pillar. And then that's her right hand. So we get the let go pose. Then it can tuck in. Do I have it arc through? Where's it going? It's going to reach down. Something like this, maybe. So it's swiping through. That arm facing needs to be tracked a bit more. That's better. I want to get a bit more of a straight. As it pulls through. I don't like this shape. Just arc this down a bit more. I wonder with this one. Just trying to help that transition a little bit more. Yeah, I don't know if I like the break in the silhouettes here. I think I'm going to keep the legs together. Oops, that's the environment. Which means I need to tweak the hips. Yeah, because then I get this nice arc of the knee kind of coming down and around. So it comes under and then it arcs up here. You'll see where I mean. If I keep it up here, but then I can drag the lower half, we're going to get this nice arcing around. So then we're going to ease out. And we're going to start to drop down. So there's a ease out frame here. So we're keeping it on twos as much as we can. I do want to lead a bit more with this foot. So we're getting a nice strong lead in here. And this is what I was referring to a second ago with that leg arcing under. I don't want to go too rubber hosey, but I do want to get a little bit more of that arc leading in the knee. Something like that. Maybe I can push that line of action a bit more. Yeah, that feels better. Just tilting the hips a bit more. Feels like this would come down more now. Yeah, it definitely needs to come down more. Get the lead on the foot. Because this is on the 3 right now. I feel like... Do I make it faster? So in other words, if I put this on the 2, then I'll add a 1 here so it goes really quick, rather than slowing down. Then I at least get the lead on the other leg, dropping into the contact. Because I would like the idea of this foot. Are we in IK here? Or is this FK? Oh, why am I in FK? That's gross. Okay. No worries. So I want to feel the weight come through. Onto the leg. So this one's a little bit more controlled. And then that foot would be planting on the ground. There's some weird toe pivots in here I need to fix. Yeah, that's a bit better. So we're coming through. It looks like the chest needs to continue, say, this direction because of where we're coming to here. Maybe I'm twisting around too much on the head too early. And then the neck would be further forward here. That feels a bit better. I think we're easing out the arm too early here. And then that's when we're coming through. Yeah, I need to get the lead here. So this is where we're punching in early. So we get a faster transition with that hand coming through. It's quite snappy. Do I curl the hand here, or do I have it reach out? I might try curling it. This is on ones. Yeah, there's some weird spacing on the hands now. Here. Come around. Continue coming through. Thank you so much. Then we're continuing the pull. Yeah. It feels like we're dragging that hand for a long time, but that's intentional because I want us to read the menu. And then as we're sliding in here, this might also be earlier. Let's have a look. Yeah, I think by frame. 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, I don't know. Just put it on twos. I'm just doing this in FK now. Which is fine. Could make it work. It's tricky with this leg. Unless I do something like that. It pulls back. But yeah, it's going to kick through. So I want to see the anticipation, really. I can see where I was going with it in my blocking. This is my common, like, tricky part recently that I've been noticing in my work when I've, like, been working, like more professionally, is, like, I need to preserve what was working in my blocking as I move into spline and adding in betweens, because sometimes I lose that intention when I'm starting to like refine stuff and tweak things. So I've got to say, okay, these are the core things about my blocking. I need to preserve that and take that into consideration as I start to add more keys. I reckon I can get lower here. So we're coming through. Really reach the arm out. There we go. So now it feels like we're really scooping down, coming through. Similar thing here. Oops, that's the wrong control. I wonder if I can go lower still. It's also maybe to do with a twist. There we go. We get that nice push now. Chat's gone pretty quiet. All the people that like to ask questions have left. Out of the most recent trailers from animated movies, which one are you guys most excited for? Yeah, that's working pretty well. And we're sliding through. This needs to be a frame earlier. So we got the in-between on the 2. Now this kick is going to be quite fast. So as we're coming through, there's a switch up, yeah, on the leg coming around. We're tilting the head. That leg comes through. Do I go for a straight here? Is that maybe too much? Depending on what we want to do with the arm as well, because I don't want it to drag for too long. I do have it dragging quite a long time though. I feel like I'm going to have to continue to arc down and follow through. Which means we need to remain lower. Which may mean I also need to get that leg coming through. Alternatively, we have the menu come through first, then the leg comes in after. Maybe that's the strat. Rather than trying to delay, we wipe the menu first. So when we get to here, the menu will already be coming around. And then the leg here. Just gonna add the in-between. I'm gonna tweak the timing on the leg in a minute. Trying to get the pose working. Here. So now this is where that leg being in the breakdown. It's pretty quick. May also need to be on ones potentially. Just trying to get a line of action to push there. That feels better. We're getting more of a line of action going through the body there now. And we get more of a clear silhouette on the arm as the menu comes through. So we're kind of killing two birds with one stone in a really nice way. I want her deliberately to hide her head in the menu. Because the idea is she's placing the menu in front, like behind her head. So I want to have a pose where it's very clear that she's trying to hide behind it. Which may mean in this in-between, it's a tricky one because I need to keep her head tucked under. Where did I put it before? I was drawing behind. So it's coming up. Then maybe I can play around with the shoulder pose to connect the chest, to connect the shoulders a bit more. So if that's the angle, then I can twist the upper half a little bit more, just so we get that nice line going through. Then I can tweak the legs. Now, I'm wondering if we need to slide slightly less. Through here, it needs to stay back a bit longer. So that as we come through, here, we're reading the slide. There we go. So we're going to come through here, and then we're reading the slide through this part, where we're reading this pose more as we travel past the robot. I think that makes more sense. And we get a nice like follow through of the arm that reads a bit clearer. So now when I add an extra in between here, and get a bit more of a straight there on that arm, on the leg. Makes it a bit more interesting. We may need to get a little bit more weight on the slide here. So the angle of the arms is going to pull back a bit more. We're getting lower to the ground. I can always have the hands go flat out. This is her right hand. It'll be like that. Something like this. That way, as we ease out this stuff, Feels like the shoulder here, that connection is still a little off. But this way we're going to get a bit more contrast on the weight of the arm. Like that. We get a nice ease out of the hand, kind of trailing behind too. Yeah, so that speed up feels a little bit too quick now. But we do have loads of time here, so that's perfect to reach this. So we can just drag this out. So from here to here to here. Let's delay this. So that needs an extra in between there. So this is just a sliding pose at this point. And then we are going to be slowly easing into this. A little bit more weight on the shoulder. Starts to come around. Keeping the head. Trying to aim where she's going. Oops, wrong one. So this can begin to come around too. And then it's a case of, as we fold into this part, do I want to slow that down more? So we're adding more in-betweens, just slowly coming through. Don't want to intersect the ground too much. And by too much, I mean at all. So coming around. Need to make sure that foot remains planted. And then here we're starting to slow down and drop. It does feel like we're delayed a bit too much anyway here, so I might speed this part up slightly. So I'm gonna bring this earlier. I think that might. Yeah, I might just actually keep that on the 2. And then it's dropping into this. Which you can see we're losing her here anyway. So this is perfect. So we can bring this stuff earlier. And I did also notice we have the geometry here as well, which I've animated. Is that animated too? Yeah, this stuff is animated. So I need to select all of this together as I retime it. Is that too early now? I think I can make that a little later. As we ease out of that, we're dropping down. See, that's too fast now. Let me delay this slightly, because the timing on the camera is correct. Maybe it does need to be just a little bit more weighty. So I want to read. Yeah, I want to read that catch there. Because you just about read as the camera settles, then you read the sign come down, which is what I want. And then that's an extra. Oops. I accidentally shrunk the key there. Didn't mean to do that. Just bring that back a frame. Then there's a 2 in here I can add. So I'm going to have to tweak some of these poses, obviously, because I'm retiming it. Yeah, so that needs... I can get rid of that key. 2, 3, 4, 5. 2. There, that key there. Ah. For some reason okay, I deleted the wrong frame. It's fine. Delete that. Ah, it was the sign. There we go. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, I think that's gonna work when I add in-betweens. Let me just save this. So we have an in-between here. We ease this out. Keep her moving back. That back leg. Oops, wrong one. As that's coming through, we need to read. So I think I'm going to have to start to reveal this foot a little earlier to read that transition. And then I can have that continue to stick out. Starting to bring the legs stick up closer together. Which may mean this one needs to stay straighter so that we can read the spacing on that transition. I may even need to stretch it. Just to read the pink. It's coming around. There you go. So now you read that transition, the crossover a little clearer. And then we're dropping down. Thank you. I appreciate it. So now we're dropping through. So this is a tricky part. I mean, we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, so this key needs to be 1 frame later. So I have 2 keys to add in between here. But this pose isn't quite working anyway, because we need to be slightly higher up. I want to feel a bit more weight on her upper half dragging down the side of the ledge. Which means I need to tweak legs. Ideally, we don't always do this stuff in FK, but I don't mind doing it so manually. I can still sell the idea. And then I'm going to continue to ease out. So now we're crossing that leg through. Do I go longer down, then tuck in. Yeah, just give it a little bit more of an arc. Similar thing on this one. So there's a slight offset on timing of the legs. So one comes down first and then the other one comes in. But it might not read very well. Maybe it's too complex. Maybe I need to keep this one tucked in. And then there's a separation. And then this can tuck up more. Getting a bit more contrast. And that's when we're coming up. So as we're falling off here, I still want to feel like there's some weight in her upper half as well. Because right now it feels like we're not feeling the weight on the top. I want to feel like she's actually sliding down the edge of it. Like that. And then we can continue to drag parts. Press the wrong part there. There we go. So that shoulder can continue to be dragging down. And then you got one in between. They're still slightly easing out. Keeping the arm tucked in. Then want to make it feel like that hand was coming off the edge. So I'm going to have it slightly release. So I have my left hand this time. Something like that. So now that's dropping. Save that. So now this pose is slightly broken. But I can see by this angle it was working. I do need both arms to catch though. So as we're coming through here, we have one in between. I think at this point I actually want the hands to already be leading down to catch. Do I have both feet go at the same time? There could be a slight offset, I guess. But just a slight variation. feels like we can get a nicer line of action going through her spine here. Just needs to correct her hips. I want to feel more of a stretch, which is why I'm trying to keep that leg not so bent. I want to feel the volume of the body change. Something like that. And then we have one in between in here as we're dropping. So we want to be twisting quite early, I think. Want to be easing in. I think on this leg we can get a full straight. So we're leading the action down. This one can be a little bit more bent because it's easing out from the previous pose. And then with this hand, we are in the breakdown now as we come through. I'm going to keep these straight. This is going to be quite a fast action. This is the breakdown. Get a nice drag on the hand. And then we've got another in between here. Is this on 2? Yeah, this is on 2. What I planned for. That's why I was shifting my keys around quite a lot earlier. So now we're getting a bit more of the weight. Let's tuck the legs in a bit more. And then I'm going to delay the lower half so that we can allow the upper half to come through. The head is going to follow through the action. Oh, I don't know why her head is so high up there. So we're coming down. You want to push through. And this where the head is following through the action. And then this is where we get the reversal change come through. So we need to slightly continue to overshoot the chest. Then it comes up. Leading up with the head. Getting a bit more contrast. Then we get that little overshoot. And then I just need to tweak the hand position. We're not feeling the weight in her shoulders yet, so the shoulders can remain down. Then the shoulders come up here because we're going to feel the weight drop down on them. Like that. And then this needs to resolve faster because there's some extra keys in here. This just needs to ease in. This is literally just a ease in situation. Like that. Save that. And then we have one more frame here to push off. And then this is on twos already. So I can ease that out. Now I don't want the knees to pop, so I'm actually going to cheat the stretch of the knee. Oops. Looks like they're not keyed on the earlier ones, so let me just key those so I don't break the in-betweens. That was me earlier trying to simplify some of those frames in a previous fix. And then we may get a little bit of stretch on the arm. A little bit further back in the root so that we can stretch the neck and the head. Just a little bit. Getting to get a little bit of a lead in the head, just a little earlier. And then that section's already on twos, I believe. 1, 2. There's one in between we're missing here. Are we? Nope, it's already in there. Not keyed on that one frame. And then we had this pose here, so we're easing in. And then we're jumping away. So we're going to ease into this so that we can read the other side. And it looks like we need to fix some of those foot contacts. Feet. Them against the wall. Yeah, I think that's working. Cool. So I'm gonna do it up to the landing here. So let's Playblast from there. And then up from the push off here. Cool. So let me save that and then we'll do a Playblast. I'm curious if I want to fix my screen space now, because it's going to strobe otherwise. It might be worth me fixing it now. So before we do that, let's go here. Let me just take these keys. So we're going to copy those, go to the beginning. And I'm going to delete this And then we're going to get 2 Just need to update the screen space matching. Attach to camera. This is our camera. This is our master. This is our key times. So we're going to attach it. It's a lot of keys. And then we're going to go to our first frame. Key. Then we're going to paste this back, our ons and offs, and then this should be fixed now. So we're coming through. I believe. Did I want to have it on here? This is where it needed to be on. Yeah, so it's on this paneling, which is basic set 295. Is it this one? Yeah, I'm going to delete this. I have a solution for that later. As in set dressing later that I'm going to fix. But for now, this all remains screen space matched. This is all screen space. This is all screen space. This is all screen space. For whatever reason, it's not. Why is this off? I turned you on. Ah. So here, I want it off. And then here, we're going to put it back on again. So this is all on. She's going to start going through the floor. Yeah. Thought as much. So here, let's turn it off. And then here, we'll put it back on again. Then as soon as she makes contact, we turn it off again. She's running, she's running. Then as soon as she jumps here, it's back on. Cool. So let's save that. And then we can make sure we Playblast from the right part, which is around here. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work. It's probably the most ambitious shot I've ever worked on, honestly. But that's why it's taken me so long to do it. A very long time. And there's still a long way to go. But I feel like it'll be very satisfying when it's finished. And it'll be nice to just say it's something that I've done, rather than like a little piece of a bigger picture. Cool. So I'm going to give us a play now. We'll see what we think. Nice. One thing that feels a bit off is the staging. So we're spending too long down here in this bottom right corner. So we need to rotate down on the camera, I think. So here, drop. We need to drop with her. Yeah, I think that's probably the main fix. But let me just double check. Go into the camera, unlock it. Rotation X here. So this section needs to be lower. Yeah, she's screen space matched, so I'm gonna have to redo that again. For that reason, let me just turn it off through here. Just so I can see my staging. So we're coming through. It's a bit better. I do wonder if we are still a little too much on the screen. We need to be a little bit more over. And then we can just smooth that transition out a bit. I wonder if we can reduce that still. So that she's a little bit more to the left. So we see her slide and cross over a bit more. So we still get this part on the third near the center. We grab. She comes through. We can see the robots past us. And then she's dropping here. Now the issue is here. Now it looks like we need to be further over. So by here, yeah, that's correct. So we are more centered here now. I think that's going to work. Something like that. Let's try that. So I'm going to have to redo her attach again, unfortunately. But just by doing it like this, it should work. So let me just take these, copy all of that again. Copy. I'm going to delete the attach. None of the animation has changed. So it's an easy reattach like this. Just run the script again. And then go on here on frame 1. Select a key. Go on that frame, attach. So now we go back to this section. Yeah, that works better. The staging. I guarantee you no one's gonna read what's on the menu. So the menu that the guy is holding here, you're gonna have to pause the animation to actually read anything on that. But it's an Easter egg, right? So like ideally when we get to this part here, I'm gonna frame the menu in a way which allows us to read what's inside it. And then you might even read the same here. But then yeah, she's gonna let go of it here. It's just gonna remain on the ground. I'm wondering. Yeah. I don't read the transition. I think the arm, yeah, this in between, the arm needs to stay straight. And then it can ease into it. I'm going to quickly fix that now because I don't need to change any of my tools for that. It's a very quick fix. So we're coming through here. This needs to stay straight. And then here, we can ease in. Keep it still quite tight, but enough just to read. Oh, it's the spacing. Let me check. My spacing in there feels a bit strange. Where is it? Or is it because it was on a 3? There. Yeah, it's because it's on the 3. What's the fix? What is the fix? The fix would probably be... Let's take all the animation. It is gonna break the screen space. But this frame here, we put this one on a 1. Where's the 3? The 3's there. So we push that back. And we put that on the 2. So we get an extra transition key in there. And then I just need to fix that spacing to be more even. Just smooth that out. The screen space is going to be broken, but that's okay. Because I can fix it. Ah. Looks like it's in here too. That actually looks okay though. Yeah, I think it's okay. Let me run the script again. One more time. So the part I'm referring to is this part. Because if you hear, it does change on the sound, which is kind of nice. Yeah, 2's on the run. Because then you get the bup, 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 bup kind of feeling. But would you lose that sense of rhythm if we put it on 1s? You might do. That's the concern. Yeah, so far we've got a vote for keeping it on 2s though. Let me just double check this part again. There's something that I don't like is how much we're just sliding and then we kind of stick here on the right. So I do want to keep that more natural, which the better way to do that would be keep her, she push up here, she doesn't hold to the left and then go to the right. She goes from the right from the very beginning. So she kind of holds in this part of the frame. It just feels like it sticks. She needs to land here. And her head is also there at that point. So I think that transition is fine. But she shouldn't be over to the left here for so long. So I think I can fix that without changing the screen space matching. It's just a spacing thing. So it's around here. Let me save this before I fix something and break it. So here. So she pushes off this part. So let me check which keys it's going to be. Is it the X or is it the Z? I think it's the X. Let me just check in perspective. Yeah, it's the X. The Z, not so much. No, it's definitely X. Okay, so it slows down. Let me put my grid on here. So we know that she needs to land here. So her center is on like 2.5. So it's this key. Now, if I go tighter here, does it make it... No, that goes less, so it needs to be more constant. So I need to smooth it out. Which actually is... That's actually correct. That is how you would travel through space. See now how she sticks more to the right side? I think that reads better. Let me play it. Yeah, that works way better. Sweet. Yeah, I think that's where we're going to leave it for today. And then we may have 1 or 2 more streams to take it basically to a first pass of Blocking Plus complete in terms of her animation. And then, yeah, we'll probably do a stream where we'll like play the entire thing through. We'll do some cleanup and then we'll, yeah, then we need to do crowd. So in the meantime, again, just to be clear about what happens on and off stream, again, you guys can vote on this as well. If you guys prefer to see the entire process, including like rig finding and rig like asset development, that kind of stuff, if you want to see that stuff too, not just animation, I do say in the chat, like, I'd like to see how you create props or create assets, which would include like potentially modeling and texturing and then like basic rigging, that kind of stuff. If you want to see that stuff, then, you know, say in the chat that you would like to see that stuff. If you don't want to see that stuff, you're just like, no, I just want to see animation, that's also useful for me to know. Because I've been considering this the animation section, I've been creating those assets off stream. But okay, so we've got someone say that they'd like to see that stuff, which is good to know. I mean, there won't be a ton of different asset collecting left to do, but there will be some stuff. Definitely for like characters, there'll be stuff. I usually use a rule to even out third of ratio. Yeah, that makes sense. Perfect. Yeah, you use it to like help with getting your thirds right, which is great. That's basically how I would use it too. Especially for like camera, for action, a lot of the time you want to keep it more centered. But occasionally, depending on your composition, you may want to also show something else, which case you would go from the center and you would shift it so that they go into the thirds, which is something you actually see earlier on in my shot. Where is it? Thank you much for subscribing. I really appreciate it. I can show you here. So here's an example of where you can see how we're centered. So we're coming through, we drop down. The reason we're now seeing her on the third and we're not following her is because I want to raise this chair. So we now have 2 focal points that she then lands onto it. And notice how I don't continue to pan the camera because they join together. So they're basically on the thirds, they meet in the middle. And then as we frame out, see how I get this fun composition just to make it a little bit more dynamic, but her head is still in the center of frame. And then as we come through, again, see how her head remains in the center. She remains in the center through the action. But then notice how I delay her and then keep panning to the right, because now on our thirds, we have her in the top left and we see the robots in the bottom right. So again, I'm framing my composition so that you have your specific focal points. And then we punch in and she's looking down and we're now looking at the robots and allowing them to have their moment to breathe before we then continue onto her. And again, we haven't gone fully centered on her yet because We drop down, and again, now we're looking at the robot as the focal point, and then she enters into the center to meet him. So all of this stuff in terms of like where the compositions are is very intentional, and I'm using the thirds and the centers to kind of like balance where we should be looking at any given point, and making sure that if we do split to the thirds, that they meet back in the middle again. So yeah, it's good fun. We are getting there. But yeah, the part that we just done today is this section here. Obviously, this is a very old version. And then, yeah, obviously, what you didn't see for context before as well is that this person who we're seeing in the foreground here, she's actually going to have a hole in her chest. It's quite visceral, but that is the point. I mean, like, if you look at anything like Akira and Ghost in the Shell, they're not exactly for children. So I'm actually... This is also kind of a reference to things like Shaun of the Dead. There's that specific shot in Shaun of the Dead where, like, the camera looks between the zombie. There's like a hole in her stomach, and they look through it and see their faces on the other side, which I just thought is really fun. It is pretty grotesque though, but that is the idea. I'm not going to necessarily, you're not going to see like blood and guts and everything and that kind of stuff, but you are going to see a hole and maybe some like glowing red from the inside where the laser went through her. And you'll see it'll be hollow, and then you'll see throughout the other side. As to what I put on the other side, maybe I can put some kind of focal point there as well. But yeah, that's the intention why that red dot is there. But this is the person that she assassinated. And then she's going to go into the bar at the end where there's going to be like a bouncer standing at the door, and she's going to like hand off her job. Basically, she got paid. He's going to like transfer. There's going to be a transaction where he gives her like some money essentially for what she just executed. So yeah, that's the whole plan. We'll see how well it goes, but yeah, we are getting there. That's the main thing. Yes, this is all animated in Maya, but I am going to move over to Blender. So again, there's a little prompt I can give you guys as to how to find out. If I type in !software, in theory, this should work. There you go. So I've just put in the chat here, this is what I intend to use for each part of the pipeline. There's also things like if you want to know what rigs I've been using. These are all the different rigs. And then just a general premise, if you just type in CYBERPHONK, this is what the piece is. I think that's all the ones I've added so far. There might be more. I think I maybe have added one more. But yeah. Yeah, that's how everything's going so far. We still have a long way to go, but I have a very clear picture of the direction I want to take it and what it's going to look like when it's finished. So it's a very ambitious project. I don't have a massive deadline for it. I'm just going to continue to chip away at it over the weekends. So do stay tuned. It is more likely that I will stream on the weekend rather than a weekday. There may be a very rare Friday that I might stream depending on what energy I have. But more often than not, do look out for any posts. I'll post on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram primarily for any promotional material to say when I'm streaming. But do check out, more often than not, it's going to be on a Saturday or a Sunday. So yeah, do stay tuned. If you do like what you see here, feel free to subscribe and follow. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you in the next one. But in the meantime, keep animating, and I'll see you soon.